Hello, everybody, and thank you for listening to the Delano Sports Podcast. This has been a very long time in the making, and I want to thank you for listening. Enjoy the show. It is finally time for sports in the Delano area. Hello everybody, my name is Aiden Gadakardoville, and I am the founder of Delano Sports Media and the host of the Delano Sports Podcast. I want to welcome all listeners to the very first episode. Today we will talk about the upcoming spring sports season and all four Delano area schools' schedules. Later on I'll have Robert F. Kennedy's own Frankie Ruiz on for an interview. First things first though, I want to talk a little bit about Delano Sports Media as a whole. So, hello everybody. Once again, I am Aiden Gadakardoville, and I am a 19-year-old journalism student that grew up in Delano. I currently work for Fresno State's athletic department, and I am also a photographer and graphic designer. I've been following sports in Delano since as far back as I can remember. I was there for the golden age of Delano High School football in the early 2010s, Chavez Baseball's Valley titles, and all three of Kennedy's Valley titles. With all this being said, I felt that Delano Sports Media was a natural step forward. Just as a quick overview, Delano Sports Media became an entity last March once the pandemic hit. I posted a lot of sports content before that on my page dating back to 2018, but it used to be my personal account called Aiden Joshua Photography. Once the pandemic hit, I focused on covering sports in Delano as a whole, and turned my account into what it is today. Now, it's an account highlighting all four schools, Chavez, Delano, Kennedy, and McFarland. And yes, McFarland. I know it's not Delano, but it's close enough that no one's going to highlight them on their own, and I felt that it's just something I should do. The purpose of Delano Sports Media is purely for the betterment of our community. It doesn't give me any personal gain. I don't make any money from posts. I've given up a lot of time and work for nothing other than to highlight our players and our community. My goal is to not only highlight Delano's best players, but to get photos and videos of each athlete, because for a lot of them, it might be the only reminder of their athletic careers. So I hope everybody that is a fan of the page sees that my intentions are definitely pure. As for this podcast moving forward, if you're a current Delano athlete or an alumni of any of the schools, feel free to message me about a possible interview or podcast segment. The entire purpose of this podcast is to highlight you guys and broadcast your story to the community. As for coverage and commentary on Delano sports, don't feel bad if your sport or your game in particular wasn't mentioned. I'm trying to get to it. I'm going to try to be fair and cover as much as I can, but in all honesty, the podcast can only go on for so long. So if you want to talk about your sport or your season or how you're doing, just message me and maybe we can work something out. So now let's get into the 2021 spring sports season. So let's talk baseball first. I know we have schedules posted and it doesn't seem like that many games, but all the schedules are subject to change, and honestly, Kennedy Baseball has already added 4 games. However, I need verification from athletic directors to post, and they like to take their time responding. So for now, let's go over what we currently have. I always begin with Chavez for alphabetic purposes, and the Titans open up their season April 9th against McFarland. I'm sorry to say I can't go in depth about individual players on the team because I haven't gotten verification on who's coming back, of course with everything during the pandemic. However, Chavez Baseball always contends in the SSL, and I expect nothing less from them this season. However, Kennedy is definitely favored to take league this season, so Chavez is going to play with a chip on their shoulder. The matchups I'm personally excited for is the game at Delano April 14th, when they're away at Kennedy on April 28th, and their home game against Kennedy to end this season May 21st. The first of these matchups is against Delano, and it stands out for multiple reasons, but the main reason to me is the rivalry. It always makes a good game, and this is the first time they're playing in a league game against one another in almost a decade. The next one against Kennedy on the 28th will be the team's first real test, especially because it marks the mid-season point. Depending on who wins this matchup, we could see who will control Delano's baseball scene this season. The final matchup is also against Kennedy, but it's to end their league play. This matchup will be the determining factor on how both teams go out and end their season. So I feel like this game in particular will hold mostly all the marbles when it comes to respect and when it comes to how they finish their season in a shortened pandemic year. Transitioning over, Delano Baseball is probably the most interesting team going into this season in my opinion. After last season was cut short and what was supposed to be Delano's shot at the Valley title, they're competing in a league with both Chavez and Kennedy for the first time since 2012. So it's going to be nearly a decade long wait for the Tigers to go at their in-town rivals in games that actually mean something. I mentioned Chavez would be playing with the chip on their shoulder, but Delano is literally playing with expectations equivalent to Kennedy. If the Tigers don't contend in the SSL, then that kind of invalidates all of the Delanos only been bad because they're playing the EYL excuse that's been tossed around so frequently. It doesn't matter if it's only baseball. It's time for the Tigers to represent their alumni and show that years of competing against Division II and III teams has hardened their athletes. However, I can see that coming back from a pandemic-ridden season can affect the team, but Delano has players that have been competing on varsity since they were sophomores. So I feel that Delano needs to represent themselves and win games in the SSL. I'm not expecting an undefeated season or anything close, but they do have to contend with other teams if they don't want to take criticism from the community. And now, the team I've been wanting to talk about is Kennedy. This team has expectations for them to win the SSL and nothing less. The team has been together for years. You have a transfer ace pitcher in Casey Hasso, who absolutely dominated in the EYL as a sophomore, and you have a catcher in Frankie Ruiz, who's committed to play collegiate baseball next year. And aside from these two, you have a team full of experienced travel ball players with great chemistry. So all eyes should be on Kennedy this season, and it's their job to not disappoint in the SSL. And honestly, I don't think they will. But I think Frankie Ruiz will explain that in his own words in a little bit. Moving over to softball, I feel like Chavez is the clear frontrunner heading into this season. Delano's team last year had quite a bit of potential, but COVID ended their season early, and Kennedy is improving, but slowly. But this season, Chavez should do nothing other than dominate. They have Juliana Tabian, who's committed to play collegiate softball next year, and a team full of travel ball players that have been playing with or around each other for years at this point. I expect this team to contend for an SSL championship. And as for tennis, golf, and track, I want to wait until the season starts to talk about them. So, to end the very first podcast episode, I have an interview with Kennedy baseball player Frankie Ruiz. He's a great kid, and his work ethic has gotten him an opportunity to continue playing at the next level. So, here he is. Okay, so for those of you listening to the podcast today, today's guest is Francisco Ruiz, a baseball player committed to Blackburn, Illinois College. Okay, first and foremost, to get things started. So what are your thoughts on your upcoming season? I know that everything's been crazy due to this pandemic and things like that. And the spring sports happen to be the one season that survived. Are you excited about that? What about that?
I am excited. It's like one final year to enjoy it with my friends before I go to college, and it's like the real thing, big deal. I'm just grateful that we're able to play. So hopefully we do get a season.
Yeah. And in the shortened season, with your team, I know that you guys have been together for a while now, and then you just got a transfer from Delano High School in Casey Hasso. Do you feel that your team will improve a lot from previous years?
I feel like the team chemistry is going to be there because me and Casey, we go back to the Bandit years, and it's cool because we have that little squad coming back together. So I feel like we'll be fine.
Now, you're competing in the SSL. If you haven't heard, Delano High School will be competing in the SSL for all spring sports this coming season. So that means all three Delano teams will be in the league for the first time since 2012. So with that being said, going into your senior season, how do you feel on your chances of contending for a league championship this year?
Well, I feel like team's chemistry is there. We got ball players. We just got to put things together, I feel like if we work hard and if we just stay on our game and have fun, we should be fine. So hopefully, if everything goes well, we should be looking for a championship this year.
Now that everybody knows, especially after this podcast, hopefully a lot of people will know, being committed to go play in college, does that add any pressure to yourself going into your senior season?
Honestly, I think it takes a lot of pressure off because I feel like you work so hard, like day in, day out. You're just trying to, I need to get an offer, or, I need something to have that reassurance that I'm going to be okay. And I feel like now that I have this, I just go out there, have fun, still work hard, but just enjoy it because it's going to be my last high school year.
Sounds great. Now, on a personal note, I know that we have played together a lot when we were smaller, much younger, and we played together in Little League and things like that. For you, when did baseball get serious for you?
For me, I feel like once I met Coach Bill Gentry, he's a scout for the Pirates right now. That man changed my life a lot. He taught me a lot mentally, physically, and emotionally. And I've been going with them since I was 10 years old. So I feel like once I started going there, it got serious because my parents had to pay for that training. And I'm just grateful because times got hard and we couldn't afford it at some point. And Bill talked to my parents, and I didn't have to pay for a few months, you know. So he took me in as like his own son, kind of. And from there, our bond has just grown so much, and I'm so grateful that I met that man.
That's great. Now, I know you played a lot. I know you go to Kennedy and everything like that. And you've been there for the past 4 years, but I'm assuming that the majority of your career has been spent in the travel circuit. Do you
Yeah.
want to talk about your travel ball career, when it started, what teams you've been on, and things like that, who you met along the way, and how that helped you progress as a player?
Yeah, yeah. Um, Travel ball, I probably started when I was 11, 12. You know, I think my first team was Bakersfield Rockets, and I was on there. And I still talk to a lot of the guys there because they're from Bakersfield, obviously. So we still got that bond. That's what's cool. You meet a lot of new people on the way. And then after the Rockets, I went to Bakersfield Thunder for a little while. And I was like the small man of that team. So it was harder for me on those years. So I went back to the Rockets, and that was basically my team since I was a little kid. What other teams? I would help play with the Bombers and some other teams that were put together by some coaches just so we could play.
Now, is there any coach, or I know you had mentioned the Rockets, that was your team, any team that stood out in particular during your time in travel ball?
Once I hit high school ball, I think my Pacific Stars team is what stood out to me a lot because that's basically like scout ball. So we're going up against like competition, as in, everybody wants it there and everybody's hungry. And it's like it opens your eyes to where like you see people work hard and then you see people who work even harder. And I feel like that's what gave me that like motivation to I need to bust out every day just to get where I want to be.
Now, when you came out of middle school and you were going to high school, I know you went to Kennedy. And I want to ask, what were the reasoning behind that? I know it's most likely just living range and stuff like that, but with Chavez, when you were coming into high school, with Chavez just coming off of being Valley champions twice back to back, and then Delano High School getting one of its better coaches in the past years, what went into you going to Kennedy, who wasn't technically on the top of the baseball circuit at the time?
Well, what had happened was we had lost our house when we used to live on that side of town. So we moved over here by Pioneer. So my mom was like, I'm pretty sure you don't want to walk all the way to Chavez. So I took the walk to Kennedy. And it was fine because I had new friends here and some old friends.
Yeah.
So that was it.
Now, in high school ball, would you say you took travel ball or high school ball more seriously when it came to playing?
I feel like to me, competition is competition. I go out there and I got to do what I got to do. So I feel like I played hard for both teams because, you can't like go out there and play soft and then for the outside league team play better. You get me? You got to go out there, you got to put in work, and you just got to grind.
No, I understand that. Now, you said you've been working with a scout since you're about 10 years old. You played travel ball and you worked with a lot of major coaches that had a lot of opportunities. How did or when did the scouting process begin for you? At what age? And then how was it in the beginning?
Well, when I first got onto that team, I was freshman in high school. So that was my first year we played there. And I didn't start getting looked at until probably towards my end of my sophomore year, junior year. But I didn't have no like letters of like, hey, we're interested in you. But I would just have people following my profile and stuff. I didn't get noticed until the end of my junior year. Once our season finished, I started getting a few schools in contact with me. And yeah,
So when did you start getting in talks with Blackburn?
probably like November because the coach flew out to see one of our players when we were on the travel team. And then I think a week after that, I got an email saying that he liked the way I played. And we went from there, he started texting me and then we text back. So that's what I liked about Blackburn. The coach was interested in me and he showed it. And since then we stayed in communication.
Now, as you've progressed as a player since you were little, I know you're mainly a catcher. That's kind of your position. What would you say is the one part of your game that you've worked on the most, and you think that that work that you've put in has paid off, and you've improved in that skill?
I would say my hitting, man, because I go out there and I have my tee out there. You don't gotta hit 100 balls. You just gotta hit some you gotta feel yourself, you know. You just gotta go out there, put in time, because if you don't put in time, it's not gonna show. And I feel like my junior year was when I started hitting the ball a lot better, and I noticed because my batting average and everything was up, and I felt good, you know. Swinging the bat was it was like easy to me, and I like that. So I feel like hitting was probably like the biggest impact of me.
So would you say that when you work with your trainer, that that's kind of the aspect that you focus on, and then that's what you ended up being the best at, or what you improve the most at?
Well, right at where I train at, we work on throwing. Obviously, you know, you warm up and then you hit. But I feel like I put in more work hitting because at home, I was grateful and I'm blessed because my dad was able to put up a cage for me. You know, so I'm able to go hit out there whenever I want, and it's easy to me. You know, I have fun with it. I feel like that's why I'm not saying I'm good at it, but when I work hard for something, I know, you know, if that makes sense.
No, I understand. And on a more personal note, I know you talk about a lot of people that have been um, good to you in your life and things like that, and have given you opportunities. Who would you say, or who are the people that have been the most inspirational to you and have kept you going and gotten you to this point in your career?
First, I gotta thank God, you know, for all of this. None of this would have happened without him. And then it would be my parents because my parents are just so supportive, you know. Like my dad would work on Saturdays just to bring money to the table, or for me, like if I needed something with baseball. And we're thankful enough that my mom's stay at home, so she takes me wherever I need to go. And to me, that shows me a lot, you know, that they're proud of me and they want to support me, and it just shows that I'm getting a little emotional right here, but I'm
That's
just
okay.
super grateful for them. And then another impact, basically calling my second dad, Bill Gentry. I feel like without him, I wouldn't have committed to Blackburn, you know, because he's helped me like put out my information and all that. And I've grown so much from him. And I'm just super grateful because that's my main circle right there.
Now, I know earlier we talked about at what point did you start taking baseball serious, but to end kind of this interview, what made you fall in love with the sport of baseball?
I feel like I was watching the Dodgers play, and I forgot what game it was, but it was a game where Juan Uribe hit a 2-run home run. And watching that game was so fun to me. It was like, dang, like, you know how many supporters go out there to watch players play. And I thought baseball was fun. Like growing up, it was my number one sport. I'll put that in front of anything. I just feel like to me it was easy, you know. It was something I loved to do. It was something that was fun. And it was something that you notice a lot of people couldn't do. So I feel like that's why I enjoyed it so much.
And to end things off here, the only thing is now that you're going into college at a D3 university, at what point do you see yourself finishing playing baseball? Do you plan to go as far as it'll take you, or at what point, how far do you want to go with this sport?
To be honest, I just want to take it as far as I can, you know, enjoy these next 4 years that are coming and hope for the best. You know, you never know.
That, ladies and gentlemen, was Francisco Ruiz, a friend of mine and someone I'd like to thank for appearing on the very first episode of the Delano Sports Podcast. That'll be it for today, and once again, I am Aiden Gallagher, and this has been the Delano Sports Podcast.